The forest was eerily silent, save for the snap of a twig under Sarah's boot and the distant howl of wind through the Smoky Mountains. Her heart pounded as she crouched behind a gnarled oak, her rifle trembling in her calloused hands. Across the clearing, a grizzly bear, massive, its fur matted with mud and blood, reared up on hind legs, its roar splitting the air. Pinned beneath a fallen log, a boy, no older than 12, screamed, his dark eyes wide with terror. Sarah didn't know his name, his people, or why he was alone in these wilds. All she knew was that she couldn't look away. Not now. Not ever. Sarah Miller was no stranger to hardship. At 32, she'd carved a life out of the Tennessee wilderness, a solitary existence after losing her husband, Jacob, to a fever 2 winters past. Her days were filled with chopping wood, tending her small garden, and hunting to survive. Grief had made her tough, but it hadn't hardened her heart. She'd seen the Cherokee passing through the valleys, their quiet steps and watchful eyes a reminder of a world she didn't fully understand. She kept her distance, not out of fear, but respect. The land wasn't hers alone, it never had been that morning. She'd been tracking a deer when she heard the boy's cries. The sound cut through her like a blade, raw and desperate. She'd run toward it, her breath ragged, until she stumbled upon the scene, the boy, trapped, and the bear, its claws glinting as it swiped at the log. Sarah's first instinct was to flee. Grizzlies were death on 4 legs, but the boy's eyes locked onto hers, pleading. She saw Jacob in them, the way he'd looked at her when the fever took hold, begging her to hold on even as he slipped away. She couldn't save Jacob. But she could save this boy if her hands steadied. She raised the rifle, her shoulder aching from the weight. The bear's head swung toward her, its black eyes unyielding. Sarah's breath caught. 1 shot, 1 chance. She aimed for the heart, whispered a prayer, and pulled the trigger. The crack echoed through the trees, and the bear staggered, blood blooming across its chest. It roared once more, then collapsed, its massive body shaking the earth. Sarah didn't move until its breathing stopped. Only then did she run to the boy. That he was Cherokee, his black hair matted with sweat, his leg bruised but unbroken. She pried the log off, her muscles burning, and helped him sit up. "You're safe," she whispered, though her voice shook. He didn't speak, just stared at her, his face a mix of shock and gratitude. She offered him water from her canteen, and he drank deeply. "What's your name?" she asked. "Siskwa," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "It means bird. I'm Sarah." She smiled, though her heart still raced. "Can you walk, Siskwa?" He nodded, wincing as he stood. She supported him, her arm around his shoulders, and together they limped through the forest. He said little, but his eyes kept darting to her, as if trying to understand why she'd risked her life. She didn't have an answer herself, just a feeling, deep and unyielding, that she couldn't have done otherwise. The sun was dipping low when they reached the edge of a Cherokee village, nestled in a valley where the river gleamed like polished silver. Siskwa's people rushed toward him, their voices a chorus of relief and fear. A woman, his mother, Sarah guessed, fell to her knees, clutching him, tears streaming down her face. Sarah stepped back, suddenly aware of her worn boots and patched coat, an outsider in this moment of reunion. She turned to leave, but Siskwa grabbed her hand. "Stay," he said, his voice stronger now. "You saved me." The village elder, a man with deep lines etched into his face and eyes that seemed to hold centuries, approached her. His name was Atsila, meaning blossom, and his presence commanded silence. He spoke in Cherokee, Siskwa translating. "You faced the bear for one of ours. Why?" Sarah hesitated, her throat tight. "I couldn't let him die. Not when I could help." Atsila studied her, his gaze piercing. Then he nodded, as if her words were enough. "You have our gratitude," he said through Siskwa. "Rest here tonight." Sarah wanted to refuse. She wasn't one for lingering, but the exhaustion in her bones and the earnestness in Siskwa's eyes made her stay. The village fed her, gave her a place by the fire, and shared stories of their people, their struggles, and their bond with the land. She listened, feeling the weight of her own solitude lift, if only for a night. For the first time since Jacob's death, she didn't feel alone. 3 days later, as Sarah prepared to return to her cabin, the village gathered. Atsila stood before her, his voice steady but heavy with meaning. Siskwa translated, his own eyes shining. "You gave us back one of our own," Atsila said. Our people honor courage. We honor you. From this day, you are not a stranger. You are family. Sarah's breath caught. The entire tribe, men, women, children, stood in a circle, their hands raised in a gesture of unity. They spoke as one, a vow that echoed through the valley: loyalty, protection, kinship. Sarah, who'd lived for years with only her grief for company, felt tears burn her eyes. She tried to speak, but words failed her. Instead, she pressed her hand to her heart, hoping they understood. The days that followed were a blur of change. The Cherokee visited her cabin, bringing gifts of food and woven blankets. Siskwa taught her their words, their songs, and she shared her own stories of the mountains. But the peace was fragile. Word came of settlers encroaching on Cherokee land, their greed threatening the tribe's way of life. Sarah faced a choice: stay in her safe, solitary world, or stand with the people who'd claimed her as their own. She chose to fight. Not with a rifle, but with her voice. She spoke to the settlers, pleading for peace, sharing the Cherokee's stories. Some listened, moved by her conviction, others turned away, their hearts hardened. It was a slow, grueling battle, and Sarah often doubted herself. But Siskwa's mother, whose name was Ayoka, meaning she brought happiness, reminded her, you faced a bear. This is no different. Courage is courage. Years passed, and the fight for the Cherokee's land continued. Sarah never stopped. She became a bridge between worlds, her heart tied to both the mountains and the people who'd given her a new purpose. Siskwa grew into a strong young man, a leader like his father, and he never forgot the woman who'd saved him. The tribe's loyalty held fast, a bond forged in a moment of bravery and strengthened by years of trust. As Sarah stood on a ridge one evening, watching the sun set over the Smokies, Siskwa joined her. You changed us, he said. And we changed you. She smiled, her heart full. We saved each other. The story doesn't end with a perfect resolution, life rarely does. But Sarah's courage, born in a single, desperate moment, rippled outward, touching lives, building bridges, and proving that one act of bravery can change the world. So, to you watching this, think, what's your grizzly bear? What's the moment you'll step forward, not because it's easy, but because it's right? Because sometimes, saving one life can save 1,000 more.